Just for the lols, Hans Niemann decided to crash Hikaru Nakamura's tournament, which he'd organised on chess.com. Now, it was some chess 960, then some bullet chess, lots of top players playing, and Hikaru and Hans were paired with each other a number of times. This is one of the bullet chess games that they played, July 11th, very exciting one this, real positional mastery in a bullet game. Absolutely love it. Let's dive right in. Hans is playing with white here and kicks off with e4. Best by test, said Bobby Fischer, one of Hans's heroes. Who's going to be the greatest American player of all time? This guy or this guy? The one on the right is pushing for it to be him. Now we see knight f6 from Hikaru. The Alekhine defense, or Alekhine, don't always pronounce it right. Very provocative. Hans yells charge as he pushes forward the foot soldiers, takes the whole center, and d6, the main move here. Nibble away. This is a hyper-modern opening, as they call them, where you give the center but fight from afar. Think King's Indian defense. But Hikaru plays knight b6, a third pony move in the first three moves. The positional chess aficionados everywhere rolling their eyes, and Hans carries on with some steady development. Now Hikaru starts chipping away at the center, a la Bugs Bunny, nibble it down. Now we see takes. You can take with either pawn here, but Hikaru goes with the C pawn, my own preferred move. I love dabbling with this one, especially in faster time controls. We get bishop e6 and Hikaru builds the banana hammock. Very fluid structure. Castles played. The bishop fianchettos hits the chocolate slide, beautiful long diagonal, and we see the most explosive move on the board, c4. The center under siege. And this is why, after castles, no fist bump between the players, no love lost there, h3 to stop bishop g4, knight c6, we don't get d5. Because keep that center under siege, right? The moment you push the pawn, well, you open up the bishop and you give up some very important dark squares. So Hans holds steady with knight c3. Good move. And there's different ways that black can now play. One pawn structure change is pawn e5. You can develop the bishop. We see that soon. King h4, very common in another dimension, universe, or king h5 I should say, but not played. Hikaru goes pawn d5, and it's a provocative move, but a good move. c5 comes on the board. Now in some positions, the bishop's already developed outside the pawn chain. You can go knight c8 to e7 to f5, once this pawn moves of course. But here we see knight c4. White never played b3. In some lines that's already achieved. You never want to take with the bishop. Give up your bishops for one thing, but incredible pressure then on your backwards d4 pawn, so b3 played instead. Drives back the knight, and look at these knights. Awful, sidelined, on top of each other. Why am I therefore saying it was good chess? Well, you're creating weaknesses in the white position, and if you can hop like Hikaru can, it gets spicy. Bishop e3 now played on the board, and b6 starts to undermine the center once more, and no b4 of course. This knight controls the square, so we see knight a4 played. Taking was another option, but this still a good move, opening the c file too. Now we see bishop f5, rook c1, and I love this maneuver. I've not done this one so much myself. Bishop e4. You know, if the bishop can't come to g4, how about doing it like this? Now knight g5 is a decent move, hitting the bishop. Then it drops back to f5. But not played, simply queen d2, and Hikaru doesn't hesitate. Bang, chops off that knight. Why is he giving up the bishop pair? Well, e6 is the point. You set up the rock solid light squared pawn formation. Think Caro-Kann, think French defense. These kind of structures, it can make sense to seed that light squared bishop and use the knights to hop around. Hikaru starts doing it soon. Bishop e2 first played. That's the more pertinent diagonal for that light squared monster. Now rook b8. We'll see the point soon, because after Hans centralizes here, not necessarily the best plan, but they're playing bullet chess right, you know, rapidly throwing the pieces, Hikaru goes for pawn b5. Space gain. Gives this passed pawn, yes, for white, but it's nicely blockaded. Knights are excellent blockaders, they say. They can sit in front of the pawn and still influence the position as they loom over the ramparts. So this knight retreats. Pressure on b5 now. a6 therefore defends. And look at the black position, right? Kind of hemmed in, white with the space, bishop pair, that sort of thing. Takes a classy player to be able to maneuver in this stuff. I love what comes next. So Hans goes bishop f3. Now you can start with knight e7. It's a great move. Headed for f5, then this knight can come to c6. But they're playing on seconds. Hikaru goes queen c7, maybe pre-moved it. It's a bad blunder. You walk into bishop f4 and you're simply losing in exchange. e5 no good. The d5 pawn collapses with tempo against the queen. But luckily for Hikaru, it was missed. Knight e2 was played instead by Hans Niemann, and now Hikaru spots it. Slides the queen to a7, but his knights can't maneuver so easily now, because after this move of h4, excellent attacking idea, you can no longer play knight e7, or your knight on a5 hangs. When the queen was on d8, all was okay in the world, plus there was a knight on c3. So Hikaru's got to go the long route. Starts with knight b7. Very ugly move, but he is still solid with his pawn structure. h5 played. This rook now moves to the d file here, and I love this attacking motif from Hans Niemann. Remember it for your own games. g3 played. I've seen Magnus do this kind of thing before. Rook d7 vacates the square for the knight, and now king g2. The king looks tidier on the light squares, but look where the rooks are headed. This knight comes back to d8 here, and rook h1. This was the point of the whole maneuver. Very nice attacking play. Now knight e7 played, a longer way to remaneuver the knights, and we see an h takes on g6 flicked in here. Not forced. The computer prefers to just build the tension. You know, knight f4 maybe, that sort of thing. Sometimes the threat is worse than the execution. But takes was played, certainly not a bad move, and how would you recapture? Again, it's a very important defensive motif. There's a right way and a wrong way. Normally you capture towards the center. In this particular instance, if you do this, mistake. This move can come and you're toast. You know, if you take, the queen comes streaming in, you're getting mated basically. If you don't take, well then, you know, you're going to lose a rook if you move the bishop, or white takes anyway and brings the queen in. It's just deadly. These ones can't help. Queen's in Siberia. So this is the problem with HG. That's why FG was played instead. Now we see this move of bishop g4, very tidy chess. Knight f5 intercepts, also looks at some dark squares, and Hans saves his bishop pair. It's great chess. He stacks up the clergyman here. Nice attack for white. Knight c6 played from Hikaru, and the pawn on d4 is attacked un deux trois. You have to do something. Only defended un deux. So what to do? You either come back with the bishop, or you can't use a rook actually, you'd end up losing a queen, or you take on f5. This is what Niemann does. Best move. Rook recaptures, and now I love this. It's typical of Hans's style. You don't have to play so aggressive. You could go, say, queen e3, just sort of nudge into the game, but he plays the move of pawn to g4. Gary the debt collector banging on the door. The rent's due. The rook's got to move back. Again, you can go queen e3, but Hans is so aggressive. I think that's why he started doing well in blitz chess, especially recently. He plays pawn to f4, starts screaming into the mic. Just kidding, this is some old footage, but you can imagine his blood's up right now. Let's go, let's checkmate Hikaru Nakamura. These guys want to kill each other on the chessboard, and now we see rook d to f7. Hikaru just calmly doubles. Rook h3. Hans is going for a double stack of his own. And what does Hikaru do? Nothing on the king side, I love this. Just pawn a5. Playing on the complete opposite side of the board. Love when grandmasters do that. Just like, yeah, what's your threat? Big deal. Well, hang on. There is a threat. Here Hans is threatening to crash through on h7. Now you can nudge the bishop back. Open up the rook's defense. Does get a little bit passive. You know, you're acquiescing to just a stifled position where white has all the fun. What does Hikaru do? Spots an opportunity. with queen to d7. Very sneaky move because it is now x-raying an undefended g-pawn. Now Hans actually plays in the best way. He crashes through. You know, what if you go king g3 first? Well, still the ideas could come, but we'll stick with the game and see them anyway. So Hans does indeed take on h7, crashing through, very natural. Remember, all of this stuff is on seconds. You know, I'd be getting rinsed if I had a classical time control, never mind seconds. These guys are amazing. Hikaru goes e5 here, and now king g3 is necessary to cover that pawn. But even if your king was already on g3 and you hadn't crashed through and you were able to then take here, there are these amazing knight sacrifices where you just rip open the f-file anyway and start crashing through with the rooks. Bishop to follow as well. Join the party. Really nice lines, but not played. We get king g3 now in this position. They're following some top engine chess here in terms of attack and defense, cat and mouse. We see takes with check. Knight recaptures. Look at the pressure this one puts on, and what does Hikaru do? Just takes on d4. I mean, I love this. Neither player backing down, you know, not saying, hey, I'm going to go on the defensive to your threats, I'm going to make my own, I'm going to make them bigger. Now there's a threat to capture the rook here, of course. Best according to the engine is nudge the rook back here, pressure g6. But okay, Hikaru's not stock squid. He's just a human. Sorry, Hans isn't. He takes on f7. Hikaru recaptures with the queen, and it's now given a level game. I mean, this defensive effort from Hikaru is something else. We see rook h6, pressuring g6. Again, no meek defense, no kind of knight e7 or anything. We get bishop e5, a defensive move by pinning the knight, but also an attacking move, aggression. Now king h4 breaks the pin, tiptoeing up the h-file on the dark squares, and bishop g7. Now the pin's broken, the rook is hit, so you're obliged to take the pawn with the rook. You know, you can't take with the knight. But now knight e5. I mean, this is absolute mastery from Hikaru. This is a man who just knows the structures, knows the plans, plus has incredible instincts, honestly. So rook takes on g7 with check played. King recaptures, king g3 now stepping back. Natural when you consider that this could be on the way. Queen d7 threatens to crash through on g4, and this is the moment that Hans Niemann cracks. He should play queen to e2 here, cover the pawn simply, pressure the knight, but he plays a move almost as terrible as this dodgy hat on my head here. Always some average clobber on Epic Cheese. We're going in with the dodgy hats, and the big problem, of course, is you crash through. Here we see resignation from Hans Niemann, and what to say.
Chess speaks for itself.
Why resigns? Well, visually we can see it's awful, but concretely, after the king retreats, the bishop drops, black's an entire rook ahead, and this piece is not even long for this world, nor the king. So this is the final position. Awesome game. Hans did lose all the games to Hikaru that they played, or drew some as well. Basically, he never won a game. Hikaru still dominant, world number 2 after all. Hans world number 30 or something, classical chess. There's still a divide there. Hope you enjoyed this game. Smash subscribe if you did. And for another epic game between these two players, check out the video on screen. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you soon.